A very good morning to you. Welcome along to Wednesday morning's OTB AM, and we've got plenty to talk about after another crushing defeat for Manchester United at home against Juventus and Cristiano Ronaldo. We'll talk with Daniel Harris a little bit later on about that. We also have to talk about the biggest sporting event in the world yesterday, which was Owen Sheehan in Croke Park.
Yep, it was. The fanfare around the participation was incredible. That's the only way I can put it. I'm speechless.
Cork versus Mayo.
Cork versus Mayo.
Who are you playing for?
I was representing my beloved Mayo. You know how much I love Mayo. Just couldn't but put on the green and red. I forgot what colours Mayo were there for a second. Yeah, it was a stupendous moment for me to be able to represent Mayo in Croke Park.
So tell us exactly what was going on.
It was...
I know you don't like to talk about your charity work, but go on.
Well, it was the Alan Cairns charity match for Self-Help Africa in Croke Park yesterday. A load of current and past players, a load of celebrities, I guess you could say, and then there was me and Adrian Barry thrown in there as well. And it was like one of those moments where you're like, oh, this is amazing, I'm playing in Croke Park, and then you're like, oh, this is not good, I'm extremely unfit. Oh, this is very, very bad, I might get sick on Croke Park's turf, which didn't happen, just to let you know, but was quite close to happening. I came off the pitch and I was like, got a really bad headache, and I had the most bloodshot eyes you've ever seen. I've never got bloodshot eyes from being too tired or exhausted, but sure enough, yesterday was that day.
So how does it work? How long do you play?
It was like, well, the first game and second game, the two semi-finals were like 15 minutes a half. And then by the time we got to the third place playoff in the final, it was like, well, we need to shorten this. And we need to just allow everybody to play instead of 15 aside, because everybody out there is exhausted. Except for, of course, the actual players like Michael Darren McCauley, who was on our team. And we came up against, that's me, yeah, wearing number 2 cornerback. Out the pitch, you'll notice.
Number 2, you must have been happy enough to get the number 2 jersey. You don't have to wait until the end. Like it's like getting to 17, 18, 19. What jersey number am I getting?
Yeah, well, that is very, very true. I was kind of first picked off the wall, kind of laughing at the other kids being left behind. So always going out to help the rest of my team there. As you can see, I was lingering around the 45, despite the fact that that's not really the duty. There is Adrian Barry.
Adrian Barry, not as unfit looking as you might expect.
Well, yeah, that's the biggest compliment he's ever going to get. But he did a fantastic job. Here he is, avoiding play. Watch this. This is dedication to the evasion cause.
Pass it. No, don't pass it.
Now, wait for this tackle. This is Philly McMahon level of tackling about to happen here. Here we go. Go on, get him. And then there he is running alongside Kieran Donaghy there, wearing number 44 for scale.
Yeah, Donaghy was there in a Cork jersey.
In a Cork jersey, yeah. So he played pretty well. The best player on show yesterday was Seamus Hickey.
Oh yeah?
He was almost kind of like, look at me, you think I'm a hurler? There was obviously a few jibes towards people like Richie Hogan saying, have you ever seen this sort of football and things like that? But Seamus Hickey, it seemed, had actually taken that to heart and is a fantastic footballer.
Every hurler thinks that they're actually like a better footballer than anybody who's playing football, because they're like obviously supremely gifted enough to be able to play hurling.
Yeah, there I am. Just kind of taking a quick break, trying not to allow my body to collapse.
Aidan O'Shea.
Aidan O'Shea was playing as well yesterday. Tom Parsons was there, obviously not playing, and you can just make Cora out as well. Cora was captain of the winning team yesterday, and it was like the lineup was good. Like AP McCoy was playing, Sonny O'Sullivan was playing. It was extremely good lineup. In fairness, Conor Sketches was probably one of the best players as well yesterday. I think due to the fact that he'd been involved with the county championship recently, so he was quite fit. And we were all just kind of looking at him running past us all, and we were like, oh God, we can't catch this guy.
Who's he playing for?
He was, really, Mullingar Shamrocks.
Okay, right.
So he was playing for Cork yesterday, so we were just kind of watching him run past us and slalom through on goal.
And any I suppose Conor Sketches counts as a non-footballer who you are surprised as a footballer, anybody else like that?
No, everybody would be known from GAA circles, whether through broadcast or through actually playing and things like that, so... Yeah, no, it was a good day out for a great cause as well. And
did you score in Croker?
I didn't, no. But as you can see, I was a very dutiful defender.
Yeah, but it's not, you just run forward and score a point.
Very serious business for me, Ger, yesterday. If I had lingered up forward, even if I had scored and my man even touched the ball at the other end of the pitch, I would have felt that it wouldn't have been worth it. So I decided to stay where I was and walk and wander around instead of running up.
I can't believe you didn't even bother your hole to go up and score. The one chance you're ever going to get to play in Croker, because let's face it, it's not happening again.
Yeah, that is very, very true. the fact that I played there and I didn't get sick on the pitch is enough for me.
Okay, let's tell you what's coming up on the show. We have your sports news coming around 8:35. NFL Week 8. Mike Carlson's going to join us at around about 8:50 today. The Jose countdown clock, well, it leapt forward just before the game. It was like this weird sense of, hang on a second, there's been 3 or 4 games now in a row where they've had some attacking play. He seems to be picking the right team. That all disappeared again. So Daniel Harris is going to give us his take around about 8:20. We'll give you the breakfast menu and going to take you through the sports pages right now. In fact, that's
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Okay, so the front of the Examiner this morning, cruise control is the headline, and it's Dybala and Ronaldo celebrating after the 1-0 win for Juventus yesterday. Conor Lehan believes that Cork are on the right road. He was out to impress yesterday. We'll hear a little bit from him later on. Sean O'Brien also out to impress yesterday. Joe knows what I can bring, making the point that if he doesn't get selected today in the 40-man squad for the November Internationals, then he'll be ringing up Joe Schmidt and going, what the hell is the story? I suspect he will be part of that squad. I think this is one of those moot points that...
Being too modest.
Yeah. And then what will it take for the GAA to suitably tackle brawl culture? Another good think piece from Kieran Shannon. We'll talk about that in a couple of minutes' time. The back page of the Irish Independent this morning. Munster dismissed reports linking Van Graan to Bulls. Munster have played down speculation linking head coach Johan Van Graan with a return to South Africa. So the Bulls are currently looking for a new head coach. And who is involved in picking the new head coach? Well, the 38-year-old, that's Johan Van Graan, has strong links to the Bulls. His father, Darren, is the outgoing CEO of the club. And the committee set up to appoint the new head coach includes the outgoing CEO, his dad, and former Munster boss Rassie Rasmus, who actually recommended Van Graan to Munster. So, like, it's got a few people on the inner sanctum who clearly rate him as a coach. But don't worry, Munster fans, nothing to see here at the moment. The other big news coming from the back of the Irish Independent is that Aidan O'Rourke has said that he doesn't want to be considered for the Roscommon job anymore when it looked like he was just about to be offered it. So something weird has happened in Roscommon we will try and get to the bottom of. Last laugh for Ronaldo, says the back page of the Times Ireland edition. O'Brien says the expect call. That's the more realistic headline, I think, on this story. Of course, I'd be pissed off if I don't get the email from the RFU. I'd want to know why. I wouldn't be saying, it's because I haven't got much playing time. The only way that I'll get up to speed is get as much game time as possible. It's a long time since I strung 2 60-minute performances together. The last few weeks have been a big positive for me. And then Dingle official can appeal ban. Kerry GAA's Competition Control Committee, their CCC, is believed to have proposed an 8-week ban for the official seen striking an opposing player during the Senior Football Championship semi-final replay on Sunday. So 8 weeks is what you get for being involved with a club and running on and poking the head off somebody who doesn't actually see you coming. That's what you get in Kerry. Great suspension.
It's embarrassing. We'll get into that, I think, in a little while. I think.
I got the Times. Forgot about the Times. So, here you go. There it is. Dybala helps expose golfing class as Juventus run the show. Pogba and Ronaldo obviously being compared side by side there. Hard for Jose to park the bus when it hasn't arrived. There's been much talk of late of Jose Mourinho losing the dressing room, so it didn't all go well when he appeared to have literally done so ahead of the game against Juventus. The manager arriving at Old Trafford without a single player. Get more on that story a little bit later on. Klopp insists Fabinho will be a fantastic addition for Liverpool. This is kind of the mystery of why Fabinho is not in the Liverpool team and why they bought him in the first place if they're not going to use him much. And then finally for me, for now, the Irish news. Hampsey the Younger steps up to the mark, and then a picture obviously of Cristiano Ronaldo.
Back page of the Irish Daily Mail this morning is it's too easy. Ronaldo and Juventus stroll at Old Trafford while Kerry Mentor gets 8 weeks for punch. Hugh Farrelly as well asking the question today, should we be worried about Rory Best, the 36-year-old, obviously still Ireland captain. Will he still be our starting hooker for the World Cup next year? It's a legitimate question. Should we be worried about Ulster's early season form, Rory Best's early season form? He has shown last season that he can get his act together. Like last January, just before the Six Nations, he managed to get himself into a bit of a purple patch of form. So maybe he's just, like, when you're that age, you have to absolutely time your run, and maybe there's a bit of hope there, but worth reading. Back page of the Herald is Juve got work to do. United in a tough spot after defeat. While we've got Get Up, Stand Up in new Bows Bob Marley away gear which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later on with Darren. It's an interesting choice of jersey from Bohemians. Back page of the Mirror is Ron Number. Juventus star comes back to haunt Old Trafford as Mourinho has handed another home humbling in Europe. While the back of the Irish Daily Star is Debalical. Paolo Downs, poor United. You've also got, are we seeing things up here? You've got Michael Darren McCauley in a Mayo jersey, Kieran Donaghy in a Cork jersey, as we've mentioned. Forum set to address foul play and Dingle Clubman hit with 8-week ban. Just to mention the Forum story, because it seems that the Star is one of the only papers carrying this. So the father of Laois hurling skipper Ross King, who you'll have seen on social media posting images of an injury he sustained after an alleged butt of a hurl to his head. He's organising a forum to address violence in the GAA for mid-November. The news of the forum comes after the merger of the player hit with a proposed 2-match ban in the wake of the Laois GAA investigation into that melee.
What's his name?
Ross King, and his father is John. So that'll be interesting to see what sort of reception that gets. The GAA itself should obviously be organising that forum. It shouldn't be the case that somebody from a county has to take it upon themselves to actually try and get this national conversation going, because
He's got the killer line in that about the Laois County Board standing by, and how when you see your own child being taken away in an ambulance, that maybe it makes you want to take action for this, whereas the County Board are doing nothing at the moment.
Back page of the Sun is Old Lady Mugs hoodie. Ron's Juve nick it after Jose walks the ground in disguise. Silva's done it as well. Manchester City 3-0 winners in Kharkiv away to Shakhtar last night. And Maurizio Pochettino fears Spurs fans could be targets for Dutch hooligans. They're up against PSV Eindhoven tonight. And then finally for me, it's the back page of The Guardian. Happy homecoming. Dybala winner secures Ronaldo's winning return to Old Trafford as Juventus beat Manchester United 1-0.
All right. So let's talk you through the breakfast menu here this morning. So we're going to start with the GAA manager hunt. Seems like some counties can't get what they want. English rugby changes in terms of the play schedule. There's been a proposal. We'll get you the details of that in a minute. Rugby tackling, obviously an issue as well, considering what's been going on at the moment. Some good suggestions from Donald Lennon today. The GAA brawl culture and Van Graan leaving. So let's start with Johan Van Graan. Munster have said there's nothing to worry about here, that he is only 1 year into a 3-year contract. What's worrying here, right, is that it's possible he would leave for a job where he is so closely connected. Like, this is the one opportunity he might get to get the Bulls job, right? So if you're unfamiliar with this, and I'd say most people are, Van Graan began his coaching career with the Bulls as technical advisor in 2004. So obviously, what is he now, 38? That's 14 years ago. He was a very young 24-year-old technical advisor. And then he helped the club win 3 Super Rugby titles as their forwards and attack coach. So this is his club. His dad was the chief executive. Razzie, who's obviously now involved in running South African rugby at a kind of cross between David Nusafora and Joe Schmidt level, handpicked him to succeed him in Munster. So clearly, obviously, he really rates him and is now picking the new coach of the Bulls. So, look, if it's one of those where there's an emotional tie to the club, you can see on a personal level why he might think, now is the time for me to take this because I might not get that opportunity again.
What about their emotional tie to Munster? Is that just completely thrown out the window here? Does Rassie Erasmus just see... Of course, South Africa has to be his priority. He's a professional and he has to execute that in a ruthless manner, but ruthlessness is what this would be if Rassie Erasmus is like, nah, I really couldn't care less about the direction Munster are going in under the tutelage of the man I installed to take them in that very direction. Like, I'm sure any human being would feel a little bit of guilt leaving a province in the way Rassie Erasmus left, no? But it happened relatively quickly.
He got them like world-class replacement.
Well, then don't take the world-class replacement a year later, is what I would say. I think it's fair enough, the situation he left them in, and I completely respect Erasmus looking to further his career. But this little meddling from Erasmus now as some sort of puppeteer from afar, it doesn't really sit well with me whatsoever. Now, on a personal level...
You know, if this was reversed and Joe Schmidt was part of the Munster... Say he goes and Joe Schmidt's part of the Munster thing and we're like, oh, look, Crusaders seem to have a fairly interesting attacking guy down there who has a bit of a connection with us. Maybe we can yoink him. Like, you don't suddenly feel, well, I can't believe those Crusaders are going to... I mean, we have to stand by and help those Crusaders, do you? Really?
It's quite different. It would be like if Joe Schmidt was coach of Crusaders last year, had got Ronan O'Gara to go in as coach, and let Crusaders train up Ronan O'Gara and then poach him just as he's getting good. That's what Rassie Rasmus is doing here. Now, it's a bit different. I say very much tongue-in-cheek, the idea that he's just getting good. As you mentioned there, he is a prodigious coach, was excelling from a very young level as a coach with the Bulls.
Just quickly, the shortlist is Victor Matfield, Johan Ackerman from Gloucester, and the Southern Kings' Dion Davids. So, who knows? Who knows what they're going to do? The issue is that you're actually open to this, right? And that's because you have a coach who isn't actually part of your system, who isn't from inside. Like, when you go and look at South African coaches and bring them into the Irish system, you are prone to them wanting to go home at some point.
Fair point. If Erasmus or if Van Graan leaves tomorrow, he's like, all right, I'm going on safari. Who do you install as Munster head coach? Felix Jones or Jerry Flannery, and then promote somebody, get Paul O'Connell back home to fill one of those coaching jobs? Is that how it works? Because I'd be totally fine with that.
I mean, you know what would happen. They'd try and get Stuart Lancaster, wouldn't they? That's how that would hurt.
Well, there would be no problem with that. That'd be a nice little promotion for Stuart Lancaster. Step up, feel what it's really like to get involved in the province, sort of thing. That would be nice. But you kind of say that, and it's like, actually, that's a very live possibility. Now that you say, if there was an absentee in the Munster coaching ticket, basically, they will hire from within, and everybody gets promoted from within.
Do you think they would? Like, I mean, because that
I think at this juncture they do.
Is there an obvious head coaching? I mean, maybe there is. Maybe it's a joint ticket between Flannery and Jones, or maybe there's an obvious. Maybe one of those two is the obvious candidate for it. But is O'Gara not the obvious candidate
right now?
I mean, why not? Like, he's saying that he's got to wait a while, but like, again, you make the phone call, right? And you say what are the issues that you need to address that you feel before you get to this point?
Sometimes as well, you can be a little bit too cautious, I'd imagine, in that coaching capacity where it's like, I've got to learn all my trade before I become a head coach. Thing is, you probably learn a lot of it when you're on the job as a head coach as well. The key components of being a head coach, you're not going to learn it as being an assistant. You've got to go and you've got to make mistakes. But it comes back to that idea that Jerry Flannery was speaking about in a couple of interviews a few weeks back, where he said in Munster he had the balls to make his mistakes at home, that Ronan O'Gara can at least perhaps get a head coach job away from home, and he is doing it at an assistant level now, and he can make his mistakes away from the spotlight.
Once upon a time, there were two brothers. One stayed at home and worked the farm, and the other one went out cavorting around the world and having the crack. And when the having the crack lad came home, they killed this fatted calf. They killed the good calf. The big fat cow that we'd been trying to save for, like, you know, whenever I have children or something. That's what that story would be, wouldn't it?
Well, exactly. I can already see the opening. That's the epilogue to Jerry Flannery's autobiography. What you just said there, and maybe that's just a novel that Munster need to abide by now. I think Ronan O'Gara does another year in New Zealand. I
do too. But here's the thing: the Rassie Rasmus story was denied, and then it was like, see, lads, I've got to go. Thanks very much. I mean, it's the South Africa job. I have to take it. This isn't... I didn't realise the deep ingrained family connection. This is his team, and they need him. So there's a possibility that it's going to happen. And
also, they probably want to hothouse the best coaching talents in their own country at the moment. Much like I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, I don't care what David Nucifora wants to do with managing minutes, with taking talent and moving it between the provinces, as long as it leads to Ireland outperforming all other performances in history at next year's World Cup. So if you put yourself into a South African rugby fan's shoes, well, they're saying the exact same thing. I don't care what it takes. Get all our best talents, including our coaches, into our own country.
Okay, let's move on. You can tell us what you think about the Munster coaching situation. If Van Graan was to go, should they look outside again? You can hit us up on Twitter, or of course you can just drop us a comment on the live stream wherever you're watching it, youtube.com/offtheball, or Facebook as well. Obviously, we're looking at all the Facebook comments on our Facebook Live. You can just go on to facebook.com/offtheball, and there's a big live button there. You should be able to see us. Now, the next thing we're talking about is GAA brawl culture. So an 8-week ban handed out to the Dingle mentor for running onto the field and punching an opponent. It's the rule is interfering with a member of the opposition, and 8 weeks is the minimum ban that you can get. So they've gone for, this is on the lowest end of the scale possible. This is the least we could possibly give you for what you've done. So we as the Central Competitions Control, blah, 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 CCC, Kerry CCC, are like, yeah, okay, fair enough, you were contrite, you haven't done it before, 8 weeks.
It's embarrassing, isn't it?
It's one game, isn't it? Really?
One game. Like, he's going to appeal as well, I'd imagine. There is an appeal.
We don't know. He's got 3 days to appeal if he wants.
Yeah. Who wouldn't appeal, though, given the potential of glory from the appeals process all around the country and how that thing works? As I say, it's fairly humiliating. You can see it
there. We're just showing the footage. So that's Colm Gainey from Dingle.
Yeah, Colm Gainey. I think
he's been banned for 8 weeks for that. Well, that's the ban that we're hearing is being suggested.
The suggested ban, I think, is more embarrassing than the incident itself, because the incident itself, like we've seen kind of a spark on social media, particularly over the past couple of days, of people saying Kerry GAA showing its true colours. You're not whiter than white down there, and there's truth in that, and there's also truth in the idea that I'm sure Colm Gainey's teammates are saying that this was out of character, this was a complete spark. But what was measured, what was something that you can't say was a rash decision, is the idea of an 8-week ban. This is a representation of who you are. This is a calculated Kerry County Board decision. This is not some sort of rash reaction like that punch was. This is your chance to show, actually, yeah, crap things do happen down here, but we care about it. Like the posturing from pundits like Pat Spillane we've seen on the Sunday Game down through the years, like giving out about puke football and giving out about cynicism in other counties, is just absolutely embarrassing in the context of all of this.
Okay, so Sean O'Regan, one of our colleagues here, says timeline of thuggery: 14th of September, Strabane versus Stewartstown, Tyrone; 22nd of September, Ballinascreen versus Greenlock, Derry; 7th of October, Ballinderry Shamrocks versus Kilray, Derry; Ballyholland Harps and Downpatrick and Down, also on the 7th of October. The 21st of October, Dingle versus East Kerry. 22nd of October, Kilshannig versus St Finbarrs in Cork. They are all football. So the last one there was, I think it was a junior football match, and that's also minor. It was minor. All right, Jesus Christ. So that's under 17.
That was particularly grim, that Cork one.
It was like
one man gets isolated and there's about 6 or 7 lads trying to puck the head off him.
Right. Well, we're not playing it because they're minors, but you should go and check that out on Twitter yourself, because there's like a mob around 1 or 2. That's the type of shit where it gets serious pretty quickly. What did you say? Around one individual. Okay, there's about 8 around one individual, yeah. So look, what can be done? We can keep wringing our hands about it, but you've got the star there. If you want to just go into more detail on what happened in Laois, because it's not exclusively a football thing. That there is violence in hurling as well. So Ross King was the Laois hurler who had a butt of a hurl pushed through his helmet, split his lip, 2 teeth pushed out, a load of stitches, and his father is the chairman of Laois County Council. So obviously somebody who actually understands how the architecture and apparatus of Irish society works. And he's saying that he's going to have a forum to invite parents and people who are interested in the outbreak of violence in the GAA at the moment to try and come up with some solutions to deal with it. In the middle of Kieran Shannon's piece today, he makes the point that at the moment it appears as if the GAA at central level is doing nothing about this. They're not talking about it. They're not publicly coming out and saying this is not representative of who we are. Mm-hmm. This is not what we stand for. We are aware of the issue. We are dealing with it. We are asking all of our individual members, all of the clubs, to formulate ideas about how we could actually calm this down and stop it. He's making the point that they're sitting on their hands, or at least they appear to be sitting on their hands at the moment. In the NBA, there's a story that he tells of an individual who was punched, who ends up in hospital with a broken jaw and a potential brain injury. Yeah,
there was a leakage of spinal fluid, I think. That was the punch back during... I think the Rockets were involved in that as well. But you also had the Malice in the Palace, famously, where Ron Artest gets a 75-game ban. Like, that is severe punishment, which is required, and it is one of the reasons why the NBA is a world leader in dealing with this sort of stuff. Of course, you were going to have breakouts of red mist, like we saw at the weekend in the NBA, but it is seemingly kind of a one-off. It is not a culture like it is becoming, very dangerously becoming in the GAA.
Yeah, and like, keep doing nothing. Wait until, like, at some point, 3 or 4 people get around somebody. There was like a pretty cowardly kick in the Dingle, East Kerry.
Yeah,
There's somebody in an orange bib who you can see having a kick, and like, there's a point where those kicks hit somebody in the head, and that kills somebody, and you're like, well, like, at that point you have no get out of jail. You've got no sense of like, oh, we didn't know this was coming. This is a shock to everybody. This is a disaster. Like, we weren't warned about the possibility that this could go this horribly wrong. You were warned, and you're not doing anything about it.
This was an opportunity for Kerry GAA to show that they didn't want to be part of this national discussion, and they've missed that opportunity massively. Even from the perspective of optics alone, doesn't care what their motive was. They could have looked very good here with a huge ban handed out. And not even a huge ban. Huge is the wrong word. A ban that fits the crime.
52 weeks.
They've given the guy 8 weeks.
And so it's going to be one game.
Punching he's a selector. He's punched a 21-year-old. Like, we've all seen it, and they've given him 8 weeks. It's like they should be humiliated with themselves for even considering the possibility that an 8-week ban was suitable for that. Like, I don't know. You just are completely demoralised with the whole concept that certain people run that county board that would actually think that that's suitable. It's just an embarrassment. It's not like, enough from the sport for a sec. Like, it's an actual embarrassment on Kerry GAA that this is a decision that they've come up with. We've all seen what happened, and like, I think fair enough when you talk about the red cards and the suspensions that the two Cliffords have got. Maybe Paulie Clifford didn't deserve it, but he got red carded. You got to respect what the referee says. And to be honest with you, I don't actually have that much of a problem with him maybe missing one county championship game next week. David Clifford definitely deserved to miss one. So I'm not trying to be biased against Dingle here on a sole kind of incident that we've seen. It is probably the most famous incident we've seen in a Kerry club match down through the years, just in terms of everybody seeing crystal clear what happened. A selector punching a 21-year-old in the head. He gets 8 weeks.
Yeah, I think like over a quarter.
Like, we've had this card, like we're just talking around in circles essentially here, just talking about different things as we've been doing over the last couple of weeks. Like, what is the GAA going to do to actually say, what can the GAA say to Kerry GAA in terms of what did it get wrong? Nothing. That's what's going to happen.
That's the point that Kieran Shannon is making. It's the same column that he's been writing for a long time, that if you look back, everybody's been writing about this around about this time of year. There is violence in the GAA. They're like, look, it's just people blowing off steam. Fair enough. If that's people blowing off steam, fair enough. But there is better things that people will do with their time in the future that doesn't involve the risk of having your head poked off, and then it being tacitly endorsed by the organisation at central level and at local level.
Well, that's the thing. It is just another cliche to trundle out here, but it's worth reiterating again. You do what you do. You do that on the street, you get a far worse punishment.
Well, look, maybe the guards are the only ones who can actually sort this, and maybe this is like a ministerial directive to, okay, next time we see this footage, you've seen this footage, the local superintendent goes and knocks on the door and says, I'm sorry, I've seen you punch somebody, and I'm charging you with a fray, or whatever the charge might be.
Like, I would ask, what's the ulterior motive here? There can't be any ulterior motive for this inaction. Like, when we talk about any other GAA controversy, and there's plenty of them, and this isn't even a controversy, the example I'm about to use, but say if we talk about the Sky deal and the way that was such a hot potato at the time, you could at least understand the motive of the GAA to go along with the Sky deal. Personally, I have no problem with the Sky deal, but people who hated the Sky deal at least said, the GAA care about the money. But in this occasion, what do the GAA care about with their continued inaction? There is no explanation for their inaction whatsoever. Like, explain to me what are they sitting on their hands for? What are they waiting for?
I don't know. I mean, like unless it's something to do with, it would be really bad publicity if we started banning people.
No, it wouldn't.
I don't know. I'm clutching at straws here. Like, it would draw further attention upon us, or I don't know. Maybe it's we look after our own kind of thing. This is all happens on the field.
That ship has sailed.
Stays in the fields. You know, all's fair in love, win at all costs. That's who we are. We'll slit your throat on the field, but afterwards we'll all have a few pints and sure, look, we'll look after your dental bills, maybe.
Gaelic Games is becoming a parody of itself. It's becoming...
Here's the thing, they're not. The games are great. The games are brilliant. And there's an opportunity for us to watch brilliant club championship matches all weekend, every weekend from the middle of September all the way through to December now. And it's completely overshadowed by these 6 incidents in like 6,000 club matches around the country. The games are still brilliant. We're just not talking about it because we end up getting overshadowed by the bullshit and the acceptance of violence.
Yeah, but like I would say it's becoming a parody of itself, given like, you know, the reaction and everybody tagging Joe Brawley and John Kavanagh tweeting, I apologise for all this sort of stuff. Like there is, obviously he's saying it all in jest, but there is kind of like a nub of truth in the tone around all of that people are laughing at the GAA now. They're laughing at them. They're the butt of all the jokes, as they should be for their reaction.
Let's move on.
Lack of reaction.
Let's move on and talk about rugby tackling. A piece today from Donald Lenihan with some suggestions, kind of pointing out as well that Les Kiss obviously invented the choke tackle effectively, or certainly perfected the choke tackle as an aggressive means of defending, where the first guy in holds up the person running and the second guy comes in and tries to either rip the ball away or bind you to a point where you can't actually offload, and so you end up winning penalties. And it was a really important means of us as a nation and establishing a rugby identity as a team that understood the rules and could use them. And, you know, it was like, we did this thing, nobody else came up with it, that's great. Now, obviously, it wouldn't really be legal.
Yeah, Donald Lenihan making that very good point today. What becomes the new choke tackle, I wonder? Is it just kind of a change back to the good old days of tackling low? He says that that's the way kids are encouraged to tackle now anyway. That I guess that the choke tackle was only really a thing brought in with defence coaches and when you get into a professional setup. So like we've been speaking about this earlier in the week as well, that the directives will probably lead to a more attractive brand of rugby anyway. Of course, the defence coach nerds around the world must be a little bit disappointed that this is the case. They'd love to see rugby in a bit more of a pure form, as I say that in inverted commas. But I think from a spectacle, from attacking rugby, this can only be good. But the main thing, of course, is the idea of safety and avoiding HIAs and any head injuries at all. 2
other things that we want to talk about very briefly. The English rugby season is going to change significantly for 2019-2020. Is this confirmed or is this a proposal?
It's a proposal, as far as I can see. Like it's been subject of a few think pieces this morning. Rob Kitson saying that summer is about to become the new winter in The Guardian this morning. So, for example, the British and Irish Lions tour to South Africa in 2021 is going to conclude in the first weekend in August, which is a little bit of a novelty in itself. Then the following Premiership domestic season will be due to start on the 12th of September. So the Gallagher Premiership, probably not delighted with that, because the English players in the Lions tour will then have a mandatory 10 weeks off, so they're going to miss the start of the Gallagher Premiership.
Gallagher.
Oh yeah, sorry, I've mispronounced the Gallagher Premiership there. So basically, the England internationals are allowed to play 30 full games per season, max.
30.
Yeah, like that seems like
a lot of games.
Yeah, it seems like what are Irish players playing in a full season? Like 30, you're going to be fine with 30. You're not going to be missing your stars. Put it that way. If they play 28, 29, 30 games a season.
So, say there's 10 internationals and you play an average of 8 because there's 2 crappy ones along the way, right? Is that about right?
Yeah.
Hang on, 3 in the summer, 5 in the Six Nations, that's 8, and 4 is 12, so there's 12. And you play 8 of those. That leaves you with 22 club games across the Premiership and Europe.
Yeah, like what I do
12
say...
12 games in Europe, 10 games in Europe, and is it 18... 20, is it 30 games in the... Let me just look up quickly the Gallagher.
You speak, like I was just saying that it's probably going to harm the Gallagher Premiership. Like with the kind of weight that competition carries now, I wonder can they actually withstand that and push it back to the point where Lions tours will actually start to become irrelevant?
Like Lions tours were going to become irrelevant if they weren't managed properly, but everybody still cares about them enough when they're on. So I don't think that's going to happen. And also they're going to have like this window, this glorious summer window where there's nothing else going on.
Yeah, it's true. Like there is going to be years where you will have 12 months of rugby. If you're an English rugby fan, you will have 12 months of rugby.
22 games in the Premiership before you get to playoffs. And then they've got that crappy English Cup, which used to be the Anglo-Welsh Cup, but Wales pulled out, so now it's the Anglo Cup. Last point that we're going to talk about here is various managerial merry-go-round hunts that... So Roscommon appeared to have Aidan O'Rourke lined up to take the gig, to the point where Mike McGurn was going to be confirmed as his strength and conditioning guy. Mike obviously was with the Ireland team under Eddie O'Sullivan and has worked with a bunch of GAA teams as well. Pretty sure GAA is actually his first love. And Carl Lacey was also in one of the papers today, interested in joining up as part of the backroom team for that as well, which is, that's an interesting situation where obviously he decided to step away from Donegal and was replaced by Rochford. And it appeared as if it had gone the whole way through to the point where they were ready to put his name forward as the chosen candidate. But then at the last minute he's pulled out because apparently there was a bit of just uncertainty about the level of backing he had within the county. That's
a worry if you're a Roscommon football fan.
Like,
you're the only county left without a manager. We're edging into November here. Like, November is the way modern GAA is kind of the start of work. Like, you should have all your plans in place to finally meet the players in November, to sit down and talk about your objectives for next year. They don't even have the guy appointed to do that. This is worrying times, I would say. I'd be interested to see what Aidan O'Rourke would do with this Roscommon team as well, because they're teetering on this kind of Division 1, Division 2 precipice at the moment, which could very easily, as we've seen with a number of counties, become basement dwellers in Division 2 and suddenly become a Division 2-3 team, which would be a huge blow to Roscommon and would really kind of puncture their progress that they've been making over the last 5 or 6 years. So it's a huge, huge appointment for Roscommon. It's the biggest appointment really this decade for them, because they need to continue this progress, and it doesn't seem like it's going well whatsoever for them.
The Roscommon GAA Management Committee is very disappointed at the turn of events, but are fully committed to completing the selection process. The committee is concerned at attempts that have been made to influence the outcome of the process over recent days. The committee believes these events have undermined the integrity of the process and potentially affected our ability to attract a new manager. In addition, some of the public commentary on social media has been extremely unhelpful. You think back to, didn't Kevin McStay come in as a joint manager with Fergus O'Donnell?
Fergus O'Donnell, yeah.
And then he left and McStay kept on.
Yeah.
It seems as if there's like, the politics in Roscommon GAA are up there with anything we've ever seen. Like,
yeah, I don't know what did happen to Fergus O'Donnell. Did he...
I think it'll be interesting to see now what happens and who they can get as a replacement. One last point that I wanted to make, the Kildare under-21s, Kildare under-20s won the All-Ireland, Kildare's first title first national title since the 70s. I mean, that was also an under-21 as it was. But like, for the first time in a long time, there are green shoots of revival in underage. So it's not like, oh, we got to a Leinster final or we won a Leinster, or it's like, no, it's a proper All-Ireland victory against like the superstar Kerry team and Mayo team that was very highly rated. So you think that, like, oh, this management team, going to lock them in, going to make sure that they're
keep them in-house,
part of our long-term succession, maybe try and get them some exposure with the senior team. Manager walked away yesterday, citing differences with the county board. That's how you run a county. I see you, Roscommon, but wait a second. Oh.
I don't want to cast too many aspersions on what actually happened there. Like, it seemed that, Kildare, you can't really say that they've done a bad job down through the years. I mean, the Cian O'Neill appointment seems to have been a good one, getting him on board. I think you have a statement there.
He's done an interview. Basically, my decision boiled down to me wanting to push on and progress, and I felt that the opportunity was not available within Kildare at the moment, explained Burke, who underlined his commitment to the team boss role. And after getting married last May, he postponed his honeymoon until after the All-Ireland final. I mean, I like the cockiness of that. Well, we go after the All-Ireland final because we're going to be in it. Good man. I would see myself as very progressive and innovative with regard to the way I'd go about managing a football team, but the Kildare board and myself did not see eye to eye in that regard. Even though we won the All-Ireland, there were a number of aspects relating to this team this year that I wasn't happy with. This is something that you could tolerate for 1 year, but definitely not for a second year. So, there you go.
On kind of a separate note, do county boards still have this sort of power complex that's, like we were speaking about, that book about Eamon Coleman that's out at the moment? And that was certainly the case in Derry, where Eamon Coleman got a little bit too big for his boots. Do county boards still, are they still precious about the size of their boots?
What do you think? I think county boards are constantly going around measuring people's foot size to make sure, that foot's growing a bit.
I would say it was a hypothetical question.
Let's move on. Speaking on Virgin Media Sport last night, Graham Souness had this to say about the character of the current Manchester United squad.
You can't overemphasise how important, good characters are. Go back to Fergie's time. That class of, was it 91?
92.
92. Fergie hung around as long as one of them was around. When you think about it, when Giggs eventually said, "That's me," Fergie had enough. You think of Paul Scholes, retired. He brought him back because Gary Neville, the same, didn't play for 2 years, but he was still there around the place because they turn up every day and train properly. They turn up on time every day. Just the little things that might not seem very important are important. That every day they turn up for training, it's like the last day of their lives. You train as you play. And I just look at Man United and trust me, I am not anti-Man United. There's so much to enjoy about what Man United stands for and the kind of football they've played. But I just look at this group now, and it's a ship that's lost at sea. I don't see where they go. They're huffing and puffing at times.
And is that separate from whatever issues about the management? This is just solely the bunch of players that they have, that there's a lack of leadership in there.
Yeah, I mean, manager can only do so much. And then you're asking your big players to help you as a manager to have a word quietly or overtly with players, whether it's they smash someone in training. So this is what we do at Man United. But I think it's gone beyond that. I think there are a group of players now that are needing, whether it's fresh personalities that are of those types. But I don't see how you turn this ship round. I don't know how you get them back on a playing field and get them playing the kind of football that Man United supporters are going to be having.
Yeah, Virgin Media Sport is the new home of European football in Ireland, with more than 400 UEFA Champions League, Europa League and Nations League games live this season. Virgin Media Sport is exclusive to all Virgin Media TV customers. You can also download the TV Anywhere app and stream all the action whenever and wherever they like. Now, that's pretty interesting. Not a million miles away from the stuff that Seamus Coleman was talking about, the players having to take some responsibility, that on the field, you cross the white line, the players have to accept some responsibility.
Yeah, definitely. And I think Graham Souness, when he speaks about players accepting responsibility, there's obviously famously one player that should be expecting or accepting a little bit more responsibility in that regard. And it is kind of an interesting dynamic when you're Paul Pogba and you look around the pitch and you know that you're not being utilised in the correct manner. And I'm not saying positionally or anything like that. I'm saying, like, in terms of a team mentality, it's clearly not getting the best out of you. There is kind of a natural inclination to sort of be like, well, screw this. How much can I actually try? Or is that just a bad indication of him as a professional, that regardless of the circumstance, that we should be seeing peak Paul Pogba effort? Like, there has to be an element of a footballing identity and a lack of a mentality that's encouraging that identity, which grinds you down.
Yeah, well, Daniel Harris is with us this morning to talk to us specifically about this. Daniel, the class of 92 got mentioned there by Graham Souness, and certainly by the end of their careers, they had all become absolute legends. But when they joined the Manchester United setup, they weren't the ones who were actually setting the culture and driving things on.
No, not at all. And I mean, they talk about this quite a lot. And when you talk about you'll never win anything with kids, that famous Alan Hansen quotation, United didn't really. That 1996 double was won by Schmeichel, Keane and Cantona. And they had young players who were able to play around them to come in and do the necessary on occasion. Whereas what you see with United now, so if you look at it last night, for example, you've got Rashford and Martial, and they're basically expected to be the guys because there's not that much else going on. And if you look at what Graham Souness says, I mean, I by and large agree with it, but it's not the only pro forma for success. So if you look at Manchester City, they don't have any players like that, really, might be, in my opinion, I suppose, probably why they lost to Liverpool in the Champions League last season and why they lost to United in the league when they could have won the league in a derby match, is that they don't have any bastards, really. The kind of players who will stop a half that you could lose 1-0, will stop you losing it 3-0 when stuff starts to go wrong. They don't have, their personality tends to be only in their feet. That they play with some personality, but they don't have those kind of characters. So there are other ways of doing it, because we're seeing that there are other ways of doing it. But I guess one of the differences between that City side and Guardiola's Barcelona side is Puyol, Busquets, like those kind, Eto'o, those kind of nasty bastards who, when things aren't going right, are able to do something about it. What we said about Pogba, though, is I actually felt like Pogba was one of the least culpable last night. In the first half, Pogba was more or less playing in a one-man midfield against Juventus's 3, and it's quite hard to see what Mourinho's plan was there, because he played with Matic and Mata. Matic's legs are gone, if they were ever quite there in the first place. He was never a passer, so, I mean, in the end, the question is, what exactly does he do? And Mata is a luxury player, and certainly a luxury player in this United side. Have Mata in the team, then there really needs to, when you play someone half decent, you really need to have another runner in midfield. obviously he can come more into the game if the opposition are going to sit back, which is kind of what happened against Chelsea on Sunday. But otherwise, you're not going to be able to compete in a simple game of football against the best teams in Europe. So what you might say is, well, United aren't able to compete against the best midfielders in Europe anyway. But then if that's the case, you have to find a way. So Liverpool have got a way that works for them. Is what they have is they have three, by and large, talentless at that level midfielders, but who have legs. So they've got Henderson, Wijnaldum and Milner, who are not going to outpass any of these good teams because they're not passers, but they can run them out of games and make everything difficult for them. But United didn't do that, and Juventus turned up Old Trafford, and basically there was a gap in the middle of the pitch, about 30 yards wide, where they were able to just calmly knock the ball to each other. And that is never going to work when you don't have a defence that has Terry and Carvalho in it, or Vidic and Ferdinand in it, or whoever it is. You need high-level defenders to be able to cede that amount of possession to a team with that level of attackers. So, and for Mourinho just to say, well, they're better than us, they've got better players than us, they do, but that's not the answer, because management is finding a way to get around that, or at least competing. If you end up losing in the end, then you end up losing in the end, but you have to compete, and United didn't compete at all in the first half.
Yeah, we kind of had thought that maybe there'd been a little bit of change in recent weeks in terms of the quality of performance, that there was just a little bit of a sense of improvement coming over the last couple of weeks since the comeback against Newcastle, and the understanding at least that there was some attacking talent and flair and brio within the team. But that dissipated last night when they actually came up against a really quality opposition.
Yeah, because you're not going to get quite as much of the ball. So you can pick the attacking players, and he did that against Chelsea as well. He picked attacking players, but then in the first half, they didn't even try and play in a way that would enable them to exploit their strong point. And that was the case again against Juventus. And I said this the other day on the show, that the way that United are going to be able to try and get something out of this game is if they get stuck into Juventus immediately. Because if you allow a side like that to turn up at your ground and get into a groove, then it's going to be very hard to wrest it back from them, and particularly against a team that have proper centre-backs like they do. So, I mean, United did make them a bit uncomfortable in the second half, but they lacked the craft to produce a goal. And whereas at the beginning of the game, Juventus are not going to be sitting back. So finding a way of delivering a chance is going to be slightly easier, because they're not going to be defending with five at the back or with defenders and midfielders in front of them. And it does seem like Mourinho keeps reverting to types. He'll pick a team that looks like it can attack, then he'll not attack, and then it'll come a point where actually he needs to attack and they'll look much better. But it's hard to see this United team doing anything good, as far as I can see it at the moment, until Matic and Lukaku come out, because they seem to be the two, aside from the intention, the way they go out to play, and actual players not playing that well. Like Martial had a stinker last night. I mean, it didn't matter. That wasn't to do with the way that United was set up. He just had a bad game. But until the Matic comes out and you've got someone who can take the ball off the back four and pass it quickly and recover it quickly, and until you've got a centre forward of whom the ball doesn't bounce, who is able to make his own goals, score goals out of nothing, if he gets one chance, stick it away, then you're gonna continue to have problems, I think, because Lukaku is not playing well himself, nor is he elevating the roles of the players around him. So he's making the team worse, and that is a big problem.
One last question for me on this. I haven't seen every single Man United game this season, but is Juan Mata somebody who you would expect Jose Mourinho to turn to for a game of this magnitude? Like, why did he pick Mata last night?
I think he picked Mata because he sort of felt like he didn't have any options but to pick him against Chelsea, and he played well. The problem for me wasn't so much that he picked Mata, although I wouldn't have done. It was having Mata and Matic. If he'd have played Fred or Herrera instead of Matic, then at least he'd have had some legs in midfield, so that you might have been able to carry someone who really looks like a toddler playing with his dad's mates at that. But it's hard to see why he plays Mata going forward, because Mata's a luxury player, and he's a luxury player in a team that's not really challenging for titles. He's that kind of player. If all the other elements of your team are working properly, then you can have a number 10. But the problem with a number 10, if you play Mata there, is that when he plays in the middle, and the reason why Van Gaal moved him over to the wing is because physically he gets crowded out and run out of it in midfield, because it gets crowded in there and he is small and slow. But then if you have a perfectly functioning team, you can get away with a number 10 like Mata. But the problem with United is they've also got Pogba. And I mean, Jamie Carragher's been saying this for a long time. You can't really have Pogba in a number 10. Now, I'm not actually sure that that's the case because for me, the best. Sorry, did I just say for me there? I think I did. Apologies. Anyway, the best way of getting the most out of this United team is actually to play it in a diamond because they don't have any wingers. So if you play the diamond, then you'd be able to get the 3 in midfield that you needed to be able to compete. You could also have a number 10, and you could also have 2 centre forwards. And United don't have someone who is a reliable goal scorer. They have Lukaku, who score a lot of goals, but not necessarily when you want them. So you only have 2 strikers, and that's where United's strength is. They've got good strikers. And then you can have the overload in midfield if you need it. And they're relying anyway on the fullbacks to provide the width because they don't have any wingers. So in that formation, you could have Pogba and a number 10.
Okay, so Pogba would be at the base of the diamond or on the left-hand side. Who's the...
I would have Fred at the base of the diamond or Herrera because both of them can pass the ball.
Okay, and who? So name the team out there. Name that diamond.
So I'd have Fred on the left, then Fred at the base, Pogba on the left. Then depending on the opposition, I guess you'd either have Lingard or Herrera on the right, and then at the tip, you'd have Lingard or Sanchez. And then up front, you could perm. I guess at the moment, I'd probably go Rashford and Martial and have Sanchez behind them. And then at least it's like, we'll get out of the way of that because you've got enough midfielders to try and get enough possession of the ball to do something. And you've got 2 strikers who are, I am certain that Chiellini and Bonucci would rather play against Lukaku than play against Rashford and Martial. And the thing is that Rashford and Martial were basically on the touchline last night. And if they're keeping the width, then you need someone coming from midfield to help Lukaku because otherwise he's going to be on his own and he's going to need some help, particularly given the standard of his touch and someone to catch the bounce off, basically.
Fair enough.
Jose Mourinho was speaking about transfers again last night, speaking how Juventus, in terms of being top-level challengers in Europe, have identified areas of their squad where they were weak and they went out and they signed the best available talents. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being ground down by Jose Mourinho talking about his lack of available options at that level of quality in his squad, but I'm starting to believe him a little bit now. The thing is, Manchester United are 10th in the Premier League and they should not be 10th in the Premier League, that they are nowhere near challenging for European titles. But there is a little bit of truth in the idea that Juventus have just kind of listened to the manager and said, yeah, we'll get that, whereas at Manchester United it's been a very different story.
Yeah, I mean, as usually with Mourinho, there's some elements of truth in what he says, but he obviously doesn't examine the elements of truth that are on him. So you could say that he hasn't been given the money that all these other guys have got. So yeah, Juventus went and signed Ronaldo, and he's got his centre-backs are both cost 30 million quid. And I mean, on BT Sport last night, Rio Ferdinand was saying, but he's got these centre-backs, they cost this amount of money. And it's like, well, you're thinking, well, actually, Rio, they cost the same as what you cost nearly 20 years ago. So they were punts. Now, whether Mourinho would have been allowed to spend the Lindelof and the Bailly money on one centre-back who was better, I don't know. So maybe that is Mourinho's fault, but that would certainly have been a better approach looking at it now. Although Lindelof was excellent last night. That was by far his best game for United. But you can say he hasn't had the money, and he hasn't. So if you look at City's defence, they've got a £50 million player in each defensive position. So United haven't had that. But at the same time, Mourinho went and spent 50 million quid on Fred, who can't get in the team. So he spent whatever he spent on Sanchez's wages, and he can't get a tune out of him either. So there's fault on both sides. The board didn't back Mourinho in the summer, and if they weren't going to back him, they should have fired him. But at the same time, his use of the money that he's had has not been that good. I mean, he's spent a lot of money on Pogba, who has been good here and there, but again, capable of much more. He spent a lot of money on Lukaku, who again, good here and there. Not sure if he's capable of much more. Didn't think he was the right player at the time. Don't think he was the right player now. Spent a lot of money on Matic. Was pretty sure at the time he wasn't the right player. Doesn't look like the right player. So Mourinho's record in the transfer market is not good. But at the same time, if United want to compete with the clubs that they want to compete with, the best clubs, then it's also true that he's not being supported and backed in the way that their managers are.
Just one last one for me, Daniel. Just going back to your initial point about a lack of nasty bastards, I think, in Pep Guardiola's side. If you had all the money in the world and you could sign a nasty bastard, as you say, who is that number one person? Who is the nastiest bastard, I guess, is the question I'm trying to ask.
The nastiest bastard in football? Well, how long have we got? Are we talking only on-pitch behaviour?
Yes.
Oh, gosh. The nastiest bastard in football. I mean, De Rossi would be one. He springs to mind. There aren't that many of them in the game at the moment. Really.
Sergio Ramos. If you're City,
of course, yeah. I mean, yeah. Sergio Ramos is high level. I guess probably him.
I think he's available. I think if you're Man City or Man United or even PSG, there's just this little window here where Sergio Ramos is like, he's done literally everything he's possibly ever going to do with Real Madrid. He must be available for like whatever the money. You could play Sergio Ramos in any of those teams for the next 4 or 5 seasons. He could reach nearly 40 and he would still be a nasty bastard who would... Did you see what he did at training? He kicked the head off some kids in training 2 days ago. So some guy runs past him. Sergio doesn't like it. He gets the ball and he kicks it from me to you off the kid's head, and it's like, oh, I'm really sorry about that. I mean, it happens all the time, obviously.
Sounds like you're projecting there.
A little bit, good spot. But definitely, I would sign him in a heartbeat.
Also, the video of Raheem Sterling potentially diving as well was a low blow. Yeah, like I don't think you can get past Sergio Ramos, to be honest. I think that's probably the answer there. Stupid question, really, for me. Sergio Ramos.
Yeah, he is extremely dastardly, and I mean, that's what most good teams have players like that. Not as many as they used to, but the majority of the best teams will have at least one player like that, and often more. The best teams that I can think of have all had several.
We might get your top 5 list of the 90s bastards next time we have you on, Daniel. Thanks a million.
Okay, cool.
We'll talk to you real soon. That's Daniel Harris giving us some thoughts on Manchester United's defeat last night. It's funny how we're not talking about Mourinho being sacked after the defeat. Like that noise has disappeared.
Yeah, that's true.
The imminence of the sacking has disappeared.
The talk around it has. I don't think the imminence has. I think the imminence is very much there again. It was like the exceptional performance after they went a goal down and 2 goals down in Newcastle's case were a stopgap basically, and you would still be surprised if he wasn't sacked this side of Christmas.
I kind of would be now. Darren O'Connor scored the winner for Ballintubber at the Club Championship, Mayo Senior Football Championship final against Brafey at the weekend. Yesterday, Oisin Langan caught up with him at the launch of the AIB Camogie and Club Championships to talk the return of James Horan and, of course, the prospect now of facing Stephen Rochford in Donegal.
The man who brought you in to the inter-county panel in the first place is James Horan. He's back. What did you think when you heard about that?
Yeah, really looking forward to it. James, a top manager, he'll bring something new and be a lot of fresh faces in, and no one will be safe, so it'll be good. I'm looking forward to it, but at the moment just 100% focused on Ballintubber.
Is it good to have that kind of positivity around the place? Because had it dragged on and had maybe the wrong person been appointed, you know, players, they couldn't say anything, obviously they'd have to keep it to themselves, but it seems to be the right person, it seems to be a good appointment, so you don't kind of have that worry going into the new year.
Well, listen, we'll just do whatever we're told to do, and as I said, James is a top manager, so looking forward to working under him again. There'll be a lot of new players brought in, and there'll be some lads from this year that won't be there next year, so everyone will be fighting hard to hold on to their jersey or hold on to their place in the squad. So yeah, looking forward to it, but as I said, at the moment it's all just about Ballintubber.
And you said it there'll be a lot of guys fighting for their place with Mayo next season. I mean, that's one of the things that's thrown at Mayo, that maybe the squad isn't there. You seem to dispute that, though. You're kind of saying, no, we're pretty deep squad-wise.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think anyone that watched the club championship will know that there's a lot of talented club players out there now that'll get a look in with the trials, so yeah, there'll definitely be a lot of fresh faces in, and yeah, I see no reason why we can't kick on again.
Back to the club game in a second, but before I let you go, Stephen Rochford has gone to Donegal. Did that surprise you?
I think it surprised everyone, but Steve's a top manager and he'll do very good up there, and just wish him all the best of luck.
It'll be interesting if you come up against Donegal next season, won't it?
Yeah, well, but that's a long way down the line. A lot to do before then.
Yeah, Diarmuid O'Connor in conversation with Oisin Langan yesterday at the launch of the AIB Camogie and Club Championships. Right, Darren, how are you?
Good morning, Ger. Very well this morning. It's a good morning for Chelsea fans too, because Marcus Alonso has committed his long-term future to the club by signing a contract extension until 2023. He arrived from Fiorentina in August 2016 for €25 million. He's since gone on to win the Premier League and FA Cup, and he was named in the PFA Team of the Year last season. Alonso has made 9 appearances for the Blues so far this season. The deal is good news because it wards off the interest from several European clubs, including Real Madrid and Barcelona. They reportedly inquired about Alonso's availability over the summer, but Mauricio Sarri made it clear the defender was going nowhere.
Does it really ward off, or does it just fix the price?
Makes it higher, I suppose.
Fixes the price. Yeah. Like whatever that buyout clause is now, that's the price.
No,
come and get me.
You never quite know how long a footballer's arms are until you see him sitting at the table signing a contract. And Marcos Alonso has very long arms. He looks like a swimmer in that photograph.
It's a fair observation. I've never even looked at players' arms and contract signings.
You'll never look in a contract signing photograph the same way again.
You've ruined it for me, Owen. Speaking of contract signings and money, Jose Mourinho claims more investment is needed at Manchester United to bridge the gap to Europe's top clubs. That one will sting United fans, that he doesn't consider the club to be among the top. His side slumped, of course, to a 1-0 defeat against Juventus last night. Cristiano Ronaldo marked his return to Old Trafford. With a win, his Juventus side outclassed Man United pretty much for much of the game. The former United star helped to set up Juve's winner in the 17th minute. He supplied the cross for Paulo Dybala, who finished from close range. Mourinho believes the Italians have shown what is needed to compete at the top level.
Juventus is champion for 7 years in a row. I think 7 years in a row. 2 Champions League finals in the last 4 or 5 years, and not happy with what they have. They want more. They had Higuaín, Mandzukic, Dybala. They want more. They want Ronaldo. They had Barzagli, Chiellini, Rugani. They are not happy. They want more. They want Bonucci. And they go for the best players in the world. So big club with a big past, but with a big desire to have also a big future. And they put everything there.
That's the Martin O'Neill equivalent of talking down your players.
It's a little bit, isn't it? Like, I mean, you spent a lot of money, buddy.
Yeah, you
not
most
get all the money you wanted,
midfielder in the world, and you're moaning and poor-mouthing.
You know, like
Manchester United obviously need to spend more money if they're going to win a Champions League. But as we said with Daniel Harris there, the fact of the matter is they're 10th in the Premier League. This is not the investment that would turn, in Jose Mourinho's eyes, this Manchester United team into European title winners is actually what would take them into Champions League places. Under his current tutelage, they would need to spend what Juventus are spending to make sure that they finish in the Champions League places every year.
He signed a lot of wrong players. He signed a lot of players that aren't the right fit for the style of play that he's trying to have, and he signs players for lots of money and then doesn't play them and doesn't make them better.
Yeah, it's a weird one though, because you would look at that squad and they're probably underachieving.
Oh yeah,
there's probably an awful lot more to get from them.
Like, it would be nice to see an outsider and Unai Emery or somebody like that come in to a squad like Manchester United and be given 18 months to go, okay, we're going to sign a few players that you would like, and you can sell Alexis Sanchez and you can sell Lukaku and you can sell Matic and you can use that money to buy a bunch of players. What can you do? What can you turn us into?
Well, the fact of the matter is, without being like overly discriminatory against all men, without being too ageist here, Manchester United after Sir Alex Ferguson, David Moyes, Van Gaal and Jose Mourinho, those are 3 men that are not going to change their ways for the sake of a football club. Those are 3 men who are, whatever their preconceived notion is of how to play football or how to run a football club, that wasn't really going to change, particularly in the case of Van Gaal and definitely in the case of Jose Mourinho. David Moyes was a bit more malleable.
Yeah, with the exception of Moyes, they absolutely knew what they were getting with the other 2, and knowing and willfully went ahead with both of them.
Well, that's it. And like, that is not the sort of, like, that would be fine if you were looking for a precise continuation of a style that suited exactly these 2 managers, but that just wasn't the case.
Let's move on, because there's some good stuff still to come.
Yeah, Man City East with 3-0 victory over Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League last night. David Silva volleyed in the opener after half an hour. Aymeric Laporte headed in a corner. Shortly afterwards, Bernardo Silva rounded off the scoring when he made it 3-0 in the 70th minute. Real Madrid have picked up their first win in 4 matches, a 2-1 victory at home to Victoria Pilsen in Group G. The performance unlikely to ease any pressure on manager Julen Lopetegui ahead of Sunday's El Clasico meeting with Barcelona. Elsewhere, Roma 3-0 winners over CSKA Moscow. Ajax topping Group B following a 1-0 win at home to Benfica. The lead Bayern Munich on goal difference after the German champions won 2-0 away to AEK Athens. Middlesbrough and Sheffield United still the top 2 in the championship. Borough and Rotherham drew 0-0 at the Riverside. Ryan Manning and Richie Towell of Irish interest both featured for the Millers. Darren Randolph started in goal for Borough. Second place Sheffield United drew 1-1 with Stoke, and that is the rest of the English results from last night in the championship. Well, in rugby, the Ireland head coach Joe Schmidt will reveal his squad today for the upcoming November internationals against Italy, Argentina and New Zealand. Leinster out half Ross Byrne and Munster fullback Mike Haley tipped for call-ups. Most of the key players will be left out of the clash with Italy and Chicago. Schmidt targeting victories in the back-to-back games against Argentina and New Zealand at the Aviva Stadium. Squad likely to include up to 38 players. Well, the bit Jer's been waiting for. Bows made headlines all around the world. They launched their brand new away jersey yesterday. The O'Neill's jersey pays homage to Bob Marley. He held a concert in Dalymount Park in 1980. Sports Illustrated, Marsa among hundreds of publications that carried the image. Bows officials say pre-orders have already well exceeded total shirt sales for 2018. They expect to break all sales records. It led to some great stuff on social media from people actually mocking up their own ones. There's Johnny Logan, of course, a Bows legend. Another group that played Dalymount, which may not have the same profile, the Garth Brooks Experience, to cater for those people. A familiar face promoting the Garth Brooks Experience.
Where did that come from? What?
Back up there for anyone who missed it.
That is our own JP Gilborn.
Yes.
And Ray Foley. But it's JP, what the hell?
Yes, promoting that famous night that the Garth Brooks Experience came to.
Is that
Dalymount
a cowboy
Park.
boot in his hand? Has he got a cowboy? It's a hat. Okay, it's a hat sideways.
He have the
Sorry,
boot in his
yes,
hand?
yeah. I was wondering, because he's not wearing one. Oh, that is classic.
He hasn't changed a bit. That was back in his presenting days.
Yeah.
Long time ago.
JP not the only man to feature in this roundup. We've got some Westlife as well. They were on Sligo's mock-up of the jersey. Including one dub.
Okay, so they'd have to pay Westlife.
Yeah.
But Westlife might do them a favor.
The less said about that, the better.
Well, let's just tease that out. So, it's not a photograph of Bob Marley, it's a drawing of Bob Marley.
It's a draw, yes.
It's still Bob Marley.
It's his likeness.
Yeah, so you're using his likeness. I mean, if I'm Bob Marley's lawyers or Ziggy or whoever of the Marleys is like looking at this going, they're going to sell 100,000 jerseys here. Like, the jersey is actually a genius idea.
Yeah.
If they get away with it, it's a genius idea. And they can do this now every year.
Well, they paid for the rights.
Chili Peppers, they played Dalymount.
Yeah, well, did they?
Yeah, and Sunstroke.
Might get JP on one of the jerseys.
LA played at Dalymount.
Did he?
Didn't he in that Brazil match in 74?
Happy days.
Pele on there. Johnny Logan definitely has to be next. Maybe he'll be next season. What's another year? The Pats version. Let's have a look at the Pats version. That's Phil Lynott on the Pats jersey.
He got his finger up. Is he giving you the single finger in the middle?
Actually, yes, he is. It's Ian Birmingham modelling the jersey with a likeness of Phil Lynott. May not be the actual finish.
I mean, look, this is not the worst idea that a bunch of people on the internet taking the piss have ever had.
No, it's a great idea.
Like, come on. Like, no?
No, it's a really good idea.
Yeah,
Put
you should
famous
all go
likenesses
for it.
on the jerseys.
The whole league.
Have a look at the next one. Another Pats fan. Do you remember that guy?
No.
Jerry, we've got a video to show you then if you've forgotten him. Let's have a look at the video.
News, isn't it?
Who do you support?
Patrick's Athletic.
Have you been a Pats fan all your life?
I have, yeah.
And do you go to all the matches?
I used to, but not as much as I used to go, you know.
Who is your favourite Pats player?
The fella in the green and white shirt.
Okay, and Pats, they haven't been doing too well this season. Do you think they're going to do well this season?
It's just taking a break, you know, for next season, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Keep the good men on the bench. Then, bam, Bob's your uncle, Mary's your auntie.
Marley, there you go.
There you go. A nice little segue. That's one of the iconic videos by Peter O'Doherty filmed that. 500,000 views on YouTube, the League of Ireland fan from extratime.ie. Another one to show you, Dundalk. Some of their famous faces on the Dundalk mock-up.
I mean,
that works perfectly. That actually is an aesthetically pleasing jersey. It's just a colour coordination.
Yeah, but then it's like you need your tinfoil hat for the Jim Corr conspiracy theories.
So Dundalk jersey, tinfoil hat, perfect. That's your Halloween costume sorted.
We need one with Jerry Malone. Derry as well. We remember Kenny Shields' interview where he called a reporter Einstein yesterday.
Class, yeah. I mean...
Now that is aesthetically pleasing as well. Green tie.
Nice jersey, actually. That is
a really nice jersey. All of the Adidas stuff tends to be quite nice. And then the final one we'll show you, Wexford Youths.
That'd be a bit egotistical, wouldn't it? It's
that probably exists.
I own this.
Well, he used to sponsor the jerseys when he owned it.
That's fair enough.
Wallace's
That's fair enough. Obviously, they had no sponsor and he was just using the advertising space.
Yeah, it makes sense.
We've all done that.
The final story, if you thought the Bows jersey was funky, this one takes the biscuit. Please excuse the pun. This is the trophy that Australia and Pakistan cricket teams will fight for. Captains from the national team posed with the trophy, which is basically a biscuit ahead of the 2020 series match.
Is that real?
Yeah, that's the
Looks
real
photoshopped.
trophy. No, that's legit.
Wow.
Dave McIntyre says tuck is very good for you. He's literally gone along the aisle and checked the salt and fat content of every single biscuit to see, is this safe to give my children? And tuck, he said, comes out very well.
That's the most Dave McIntyre thing Dave's ever done.
Well, it's right up there. It's definitely right up there. Darren, great stuff. Thanks very much for that. I think the Bows jersey is going to be a success, and fair play to them. It's just as long as the lawyers don't get it out.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. It's already been huge.
Do you hate it?
No, I quite like it.
Are you jealous of the fact that they come up with this idea first?
Yeah, a lot of people have complained about the jersey and said it's an abomination. We did on the Off the Ball Twitter, finish the sentence, the new Bows jersey is, and we couldn't put any of them on screen. They were so angry and negative. But I think it's cool. It's better than the generic templates we get from teams nowadays. So more power to them.
Who would you put on the Dublin jersey?
Who would I put on the Dublin jersey?
Paddy Losty.
Paddy Losty, the great pint man of Dublin. Who would I put on the Dublin jersey? That's a good question. PJ Gallagher, maybe?
PJ Gallagher. Probably a good shout. Bono, maybe?
Definitely not Bono. Never Bono.
All right. Former Irish prop Mike Ross was in studio with Joe last night to talk about his new book, Dark Arts. He had lots of interesting things to say, especially about his relationship with the former Leinster coach, Matt O'Connor.
I wouldn't have been my favourite person at the time, but that happens.
Is it because he didn't rate you?
I don't know. It just seemed like different from Joe. I mean, Joe would probably be more cold logic and emotionless. Matt was probably a bit more the other way. So maybe it's just an Australian trait. I don't know, but it just I just hadn't been talked to by a coach like that ever.
You said you felt like an academy kid.
Yeah.
Proper dressing down.
Instead of a guy with, 40 odd caps at that stage, So there's a way of delivering your message, and I'm a firm believer in that. You can get your message across without resorting to that kind of style. So
because you lose the player then as well as the thing.
Oh yeah, I didn't want anything to do with him after that.
To the point where you're, Ulster half sniffing around and you're thinking, geez, I might just do this for my last year's central contract. So that's the damage it does, that kind of dressing down.
Yeah, well, it just seems like, well, I'm finished here. Like, if this is the way he feels, then I'm not going to be picked for the remaining 18 months of my contract. And, I'm 34, 35 at that stage. I mean, do I really want to spend my last year, holding tackle bags?
Yeah.
Because I wanted to get every bit out of my career that I could. And but then in the end, it would, he left the club and Leo came in and it worked out.
It's Mike Ross in conversation with Joe last night. You can obviously subscribe to that on all of our rugby podcasts if you want any more of that. Of course, it's also on YouTube, youtube.com/Off the Ball. Now, let's turn our attention to NFL. The last of the London series of games happens this weekend. It's a chance for Blake Bortles to have some redemption after he was benched last week. The Philadelphia Eagles aren't quite the challenge that maybe we thought they would be after the Super Bowl last year, but who knows, maybe they're about to roar back into some form. Mike Carlson is with us. Mike, how are you? Good morning to you.
It's a good morning. The Red Sox won the first game of the World Series, and so I'm feeling very good.
I want to talk a little bit about Bortles and the situation we find ourselves in ahead of this game in London, and maybe what was that?
That's my Boston Red Sox coffee mug.
Very good. Literally Red Sox. Very nice. What the hell is the story with Blake Bortles? Why is he still playing football for Jacksonville, and why are they so inept?
Well, the answer to the first question is they don't have anybody better, and they have decided, a couple of years ago to go with Bortles, thinking that they would be able to get the best out of him. Why is he so inept? They don't give him a lot of help, to be honest. Right now, they're supposed to have a great running game. Leonard Fournette's been injured most of the time. Their offensive line was supposed to have been rebuilt. It hasn't been that good. His best receivers are gone. The new ones who looked really good last year as young receivers have been very inconsistent. But every time you watch Bortles, you watch him miss easy throws. You watch him make bad decisions. The thing he does best is run. When he can scramble for a few first downs, Jacksonville have a good time. When they beat the Patriots, that's basically what they did when they beat them. But it's obviously that game has turned into more the Patriots playing badly than Jacksonville playing well. And he'll be back in, but I don't see him doing anything that we haven't seen, from Blake Bortles. They want to be a team that plays stifling defense, runs the ball to control the clock, and hits the occasional big pass. Bortles can do that. He's a bit like an inconsistent Ben Roethlisberger in that sense. But to me, the biggest failing with the Jags is that their defense, which was so good last year and was supposed to be better this year, has not been. And it's looked decidedly average. And given the amount of talent they have back there, that's not a good thing.
No, there's all sorts of rumours about rows in the locker room, and that kind of dates all the way back to pre-season when one of their players was suspended for a brawl with one of his teammates, and it was like, I can't remember which of the two superstar defenders it was, but it was definitely two of the most high profile who you were kind of assuming would help the entire defence take a major step forward this year to the point where they were going to be Super Bowl contenders. But at this point, I think you can probably write them off. What about the Eagles?
Well, yeah, I wouldn't write them off because they're in a weak division. And 3-3 right now in that division with Tennessee and Houston and the Colts means that they could win that division still. They and Philadelphia both suffered the curse of London last week. I picked those two teams as my best bets. Philadelphia was at home to Carolina. Jacksonville was at home to Houston. They reached 5-point favorites. I said they'll win by a touchdown. My two best bets. I only picked 3 games wrong last week. Those were 2 of the 3. What it means is, for the 24th consecutive game, London will not have a game between two teams with winning records. They're both 3-4. I was expecting they would both come in at 4-3 and break that curse after 23 games, but it's not so. The Eagles, after 3 quarters, going in the fourth quarter, they were leading Carolina 17-0, and everything looked good for them. They're not as overpowering offensively or defensively as they were last year on that Super Bowl run where everything went right. They've had a couple of injuries, especially to running backs, and that's hurt them, to wide receivers. That's hurt their offense. But Carson Wentz is looking back in form. They were running the ball not at all, but able to pass it against Carolina. But defensively, they fell apart in the fourth quarter. Cam Newton does that to teams, but you have to know that he can do it, and their defense broke down at crucial times. So I make this game in London as probably we were looking forward to it at the beginning of the season as being the Super Bowl champs against the AFC finalists, and a really great game. Now it's kind of like two teams that really both desperately need a win to turn their seasons back on track.
Yeah, it should actually be a good game, and Bortles has a great record in London, so you hope that somehow he kind of some muscle memory kicks in, and he, I don't know, I can't finish that sentence in any way that makes sense.
A few cups of tea.
Yeah.
A few cups of tea to overcome the jet lag. That'll help.
A trip to the Palace. I did want to ask you about that game between the Eagles and Carolina last week. Notable for Eric Reid, who wasn't a captain, going up to be part of the toss, and then also notable for a late hit on Carson Wentz that Reid affects, and then all of a sudden Zach Ertz comes to try and attack him, and Reid just dips down with his shoulder, and whatever size Zach Ertz is, 12'14" or whatever it is, and just flips him over his shoulder like it was nothing. Eric Reid was on fire physically and emotionally in the game last week. Why so?
The big thing was Malcolm Jenkins is defensive back for the Eagles, and Malcolm Jenkins is sort of the chairman of the NFL's player committee on the whole racial issue. And Eric Reid, of course, alongside his teammate Colin Kaepernick, were the leaders of the kneel down part of the protest. And so Reid looks at Jenkins as being a sort of, he's used various words for it, but so let's just say not fully supportive of the cause and a sellout maybe to the owners. So there was a lot of needle there, and I think that was why he came out for that opening toss. Now, the increasing World Wrestling Federation nature of the NFL just took a huge step forward with that sort of shoulder toss by Eric Reid. But we're seeing bits of that. The referees trying to stop the body slamming of quarterbacks and things that don't get called, things that don't get flagged when they should be flagged, and things that get flagged when they shouldn't be flagged. And we're just at a time when I think the game has become so individually oriented that those kind of priorities can move ahead of what used to be thought of as team priorities, where players would keep that sort of thing in check, and a certain amount of violence was allowed on a sort of mano a mano basis, but in the course of play, as it were. What was I just reading about the Sam Huff and Jim Taylor, who just died last week, Green Bay Packers fullback, New York Giants middle linebacker, famous frozen NFL championship game, in effect the Super Bowl of its time, and Steve Sable of NFL Films was just a kid helping his father on the sideline. He said he'd never heard anything like it. They were just effing and blinding each other on every single play. And every time Taylor got tackled, Huff would tackle him and five guys would jump on and they would be, punching and pulling his hair and, kneeing him and things like that. But that was the old days. And nowadays with cameras everywhere, besides NFL Films, we don't do that. We're not supposed to be doing that sort of thing.
No, let's see exactly what happens with that one. I want to talk to you about the busy week of trades that we've had. The trade deadline is next week. Already there have been 3 or 4 significant trades. Eli Apple, the malcontent cornerback, a former first-round pick for the New York Giants, gets traded to the New Orleans Saints. They were obviously hoping that they were going to be able to get Patrick Peterson from the Arizona Cardinals. Peterson, an absolute genius. Eli Apple, a troubled genius or just a complete waste of time?
Troubled. The first part's right. I'm not sure he's a genius. I'm sure that what New Orleans are thinking is that they can put him in a more defined role and sort of get the best out of him. He's got a great deal of natural talent that he hasn't been able to really put together. And in one sense, you could say the Giants have always put him in a position where he's got to be a shutdown corner, and he's proven really bad at doing that. So I think what the Saints will do is look at him as a piece they need and try to keep him in a situation where he doesn't necessarily have to shut down the other team's second best receiver every week, get exposed in man-to-man coverage all the time. He's one of those guys who's a real hanger-on when he's in man coverage. He's got to have his hands on you, and he gets caught quite a bit. But what it tells you is that the Saints think that they're just a piece or two away from being a championship team, and they go up to Minnesota this week. And that's going to be a huge game. The Saints only have one loss. They dodged a bullet when Jason Tucker missed an extra point that would have tied the game at the very end against the Ravens last week. Minnesota seemed to be rounding into form, and Everson Griffin, who's had his own problems coping with living in a hotel, and he's been away for 5 weeks, I think, basically having psychological therapy. He's back, and that's a huge boost for Minnesota. So this could be, behind the Rams, sort of the NFC runners and riders. They're right up in the front, and they're just a couple of paces behind the Rams.
Yeah, it is going to be interesting. Like, at least there are some very significantly good teams playing well in that division. I wanted to ask you about the trade of Amari Cooper to Dallas, because the point you make there about the Saints believing that they're pretty close and that's why they're going out to try and get somebody. Dallas surely don't believe they're just one first-round pick traded for Amari Cooper away from being competitive, do they?
Yeah. Well, Dallas are in a similar situation to Jacksonville, only they're not as good a team as Jacksonville theoretically is, or on paper is. They're in a weakish division. Especially with Philadelphia underperforming so far. So they have to think that division is still winnable for them. They do have a lack of wide receivers. Whether Amari Cooper's worth a first-round pick is probably academic at this point, because they saw a need and they decided they had to fill it. Oakland, did they need to trade Amari Cooper? Not particularly. He's under contract for 2 more years. 2 years ago, he and Derek Carr were as good a combination as almost any in the league, but they both declined precipitously since then. And getting a first-round pick only does you well if you use it well. And if Dallas have not won a game on the road, basically. They're 0-4 at home. They're 3-0. They're 3-0 at home, 0-4 on the road. If Dallas wind up being a middle of the pack kind of team, and that draft pick winds up being in the top dozen or so, then they're going to probably regret it, because they might need it as much as Oakland do. But Oakland will have 3 first-round picks. They're only as good as the picks you make. And if you're figuring one of them is going to go for a receiver, the hit rate on wide receivers in the first round is very, very spotty over the past, say, 10 seasons. And if you look at the draft that Cooper was in, the receivers in that draft, none of them have been overwhelming successes from that first round. So, Gruden's putting his mark on the team. He's getting rid of the star players from the previous era. I'm sure Carr will probably be gone if they can do a deal for him, probably in the off season, not during the season.
How much do you get for Carr? That was my next question. So, like,
it's an interesting thing. A lot depends on how well he plays the rest of the year. Although teams will be looking at him and saying, well, there's not much around him, and there's less around him every week. But he's under contract. A first would not be impossible. If Cooper's worth a first, Carr's certainly worth more than that. But based on performance, you're in a situation where a team's going to say, we can fix that. We're looking at Derek Carr and we can fix that. But my thought is he's basically a short passer who's going to be hung up in long passing offenses.
Well, so one quick point on this. So the story emerged yesterday from, I think, Pro Football Focus or whoever it was, that he'd been crying on the sidelines, that his teammates had been shown this video in the analysis section, and that he had lost the locker room as a result of this. And then his brother, who's an NFL Network's analyst, tweeted out the list of injuries that he had in that game specifically. And then Derek Carr himself tweeted out, look, bro, I wasn't crying. You don't need to answer this for me. I'm okay. And it's just this kind of weird sense of somebody within the Raiders organisation is trying to undermine him by leaking the fact that everybody was watching it. And if you're trying to trade him, then you shouldn't be trying to undermine him in public.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you've got the key part. You don't put together a clip reel of your quarterback suffering to show to the rest of the team unless you're trying to tell them that, it's your fault that he's suffering. But if the focus is he's crying after that, that's simply sabotage. Whether he cried or not, I don't care. I've seen players cry in various situations for injury reasons, often because they're being taken out of the game and they think they're letting everybody down, for emotional reasons. Sometimes really good players who've come back. He took a bit of a beating in that game in case the Raiders management didn't notice that. And when he had that hit to his arm that looked like it might be a serious injury to his left arm, when he came off, he was certainly in pain, and it turned out it was probably something like a bone bruise or something like that. But to me, it's a non-issue, except to the point where the team is taking advantage of it. And if he loses, so to speak, the locker room, it's because the management wants him to lose the locker room. Not because of anything he's done or hasn't done.
Yeah, no, for sure. Mike, great stuff. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Enjoy the game in London.
Thanks. Always love it. Keep your socks on.
We will. Best of luck. I didn't realise that they'd won last night. So there you go.
What is it, 1-0? Presume so. He did say game one.
Well, there you go.
It's such a shame about the Oakland Raiders. They were perfect bandwagon material 2 years ago, and then final day of the regular season, Derek Carr does his ACL, and that completely destroys any of their playoff hopes, because they could have gone fairly deep that year and it just didn't happen. And I got off that bandwagon.
Oh, you were
fairly sharpish.
You were a Raiders fan up to that point?
Well,
you moved from the Raiders to the Bills.
Up to that point, like between week 12 and 16.
I'm just trying to find the big brother standing up for little brother. He appears to have deleted the tweet, which I don't know why he deleted the tweet, but the list of injuries was like a broken pinky finger on his throwing hand, a sprained thumb, 2 broken ribs, MCL knee, a high ankle sprain, a concussion, and a bunch of other things in the same game, because he'd been hit so often because his offensive line are obviously not sure I'm going to block for you, bro.
He needs to pray a little bit harder to stop that happening.
Well, where is your Messiah now, Flanders?
Well,
is that what you're asking?
No, well, not particularly. I'd say he just needs to pray harder.
I don't know. It's an interesting time. You've tuned out of the NFL season this year?
Well, no. First 2 weeks I was in. Last 5 weeks I haven't paid any attention whatsoever. The Monday early mornings are a killer. It's like, do I throw on Red Zone at 6 o'clock? And then it's like, there goes my entire evening.
You can if you get out just before the 9:25 game start, if you don't get sucked into those properly, it's fine.
Well, that's humanly impossible.
Well, there's only 2 games, and recently they've been like, I'm going to stay up to watch Kansas City blow out the Bengals or the Rams blow out the 49ers.
Well, that was part of the problem. Week 1 and 2 were so bloody good, where I was like, it's 11 o'clock. I've been sitting here staring at the screen for 5 hours. I need to go to bed.
A reminder, OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Check out Screwfix.ie for more details. Now, Martina McCarthy is a senior strength and conditioning coach with Sport Ireland, a former Irish Olympian. Here she is chatting with Cliona Foley around Strong is the New Pretty, an initiative to inspire girls to play sport, about the misleading influence of social media in relation to a healthy body image.
And finally, we talked about body image today. Do you see any worrying trends in body image, even in relation maybe to male athletes, that wasn't there before?
I think things have always been there. I just think the mediums by which they're seen has changed. So like, people have always wanted to be thin, people have always wanted to look a certain way, and I think because you get so many images on social media of what you should look like, I think there is a dangerous influence of trying to get to look a certain way and not necessarily having the knowledge to do it in the healthiest way. Like, it is possible to be lean, it is possible to be strong and powerful, but there are healthy ways to do it that I think sometimes people miss because they're so eager to try and get to a certain way of looking. So our whole thing is about educating athletes on how to manage their bodies, how to get the best out of their training, and generally our advice to people would be always to eat more than they think as opposed to less than they think, because people always see restriction and if I eat less I'll get stronger, I'll get better, but our message is generally the complete opposite. In order to fuel performance, in order to fuel training, very few people actually meet the minimum requirements in terms of calorie intake to do that. So our biggest education piece tends to be eat more, which is contrary to what people actually think. So that to me is, there are dangerous trends on people's perceptions of what they have to do in order to look a certain way, and our education piece tends to be the exact opposite to what's out there on social media.
Yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to put that genie back in the bottle, because the influencers with their living my best life, where like everything is this kind of perfect, like that's not what real life is like at all. And I mean, most people understand that after a period of time, but it's the bit where you're like, oh, they're lying to me, to like teaching people to be cynical about the media they consume seems like a really grim part of life, and yet
necessary.
But necessary as a school subject for 10 and 12-year-olds. The pictures that you see your friends posting are lies. Don't worry about it. Like, you can't trust your friends.
Yeah, it's true. It's definitely a thing that people will grow to learn, but I think as a society we've also grown to learn that pretty much, not everything, but a large proportion of what we do see is totally fake. That ultimately people will be entering into a society that is more cynical, if you want to use that word, but certainly more aware of the truth that is behind a lot of these posts. I think there was just generally a lot of naivety. We're still in the infancy of the influencer game.
But if you look at the amount of steroids that are intercepted, and let's assume that the interception rate is pretty low compared to what actually manages to get through, like, young Irish people are off their fucking tits on steroids a lot, to the point where the government had to introduce a campaign for it, to the point where kids are literally dying because they're taking steroids that they buy off the internet, and it's all primarily to do with this body image stuff. And like, okay, so sure, everybody wants to look good, fair enough, that's great, but a healthy way of doing that and not being obsessed with it to the point where you're taking drugs to do it. Like, I don't know what's driving that, but it seems like the Geordie Shore-ification of our society.
Love Islandification. Yeah. Get with 2018, Ger.
Whatever. Well, yeah, the origins are the one that was important. I don't know.
No, there's definitely truth in that. I think that's. I think this year's the kind of based on reality TV. I think the big thing with this year's Love Island was in terms of what was discussed in news was more to do with one particular character and how he spoke to women. But certainly last year, I can remember that it was unhealthy body image was what Love Island was promoting, and there is truth in that. Like, I don't know, it's pretty obvious, I think, why there's such an appetite for steroids. I think the blind desire for an appealing body image kind of overrides any sort of sense you might have with the risks, but also there is an element of a lack of education around the risks. And like, you've seen the HRPA sort of install this new campaign to try and increase awareness and try and increase clamping down on things. I see there was another big interception yesterday of drugs, which included steroids. So it's happening all the time, but as you say, the more this happens, the more you start to think, God, how many of these are actually getting through?
Yeah, loads. Patrick Conway on Facebook says, that Bohemian jersey, bet that jersey will cost a few bob. See what he did there?
No.
Do you see it?
You're going to have to explain that to me.
Michael Murphy, if Munster offer O'Gara the job, I don't see him coming in and taking on that challenge for a couple of years. Yeah, I mean, potentially not, right? But like, that merry-go-round would be, chance of a lifetime, chance of a lifetime. He has said he doesn't want it yet. He says that it's too early for him in the cycle. But, like, things change.
Things do change. The thing with the Munster job is that it's not like Rassie Erasmus had South Africa. With South Africa, it was kind of a sense that this is my national team, and they're in a position now where improvements can be made. And
he also had been part of that system and had fallen out with them and was like clearly just waiting for the right circumstances to go back. So I think Munster understood they were getting Rassie, and his injection of ideas and professionalism and culture on loan. You suspect that they thought, well, okay, we're getting Van Graan here, and we're asking him to put down roots, and we're wedding ourselves to him over the interim, medium-term period.
Munster will always be there for Ronan O'Gara. He doesn't need to rush into that job. Whereas with Rassie and South Africa, that ship might well have sailed. He doesn't necessarily wield the amount of profile in South Africa that Ronan O'Gara would wield in Munster. So that's why they're very different things. He doesn't need to rush into this job. He will get that job eventually, as long as his career doesn't take a disastrous turn, and as long as he keeps improving.
And I guess that's the same for Van Graan, right? So
probably is it though? Really, like we can't really speak from this vantage point how well respected Van Graan is or how well thought of he is. Like the fact that Ronan O'Gara is a playing legend, a legend of Thomond Park, installs him as somebody who will get that job as long as his career is going in the right direction. Is Johan Van Graan viewed with the same reverence in South Africa? Was Rassie Erasmus viewed with the same reverence? I don't think so. As a coach, highly respected. That's a very different thing.
I mean, I get the point you're making, that there's this emotional sense of people coming back. But coaches have that too if they've been successful. So I think Rassie had it. I think there was certainly a sense that Rassie was like, we need you, you've left us, come back, we're sorry. That was like a breakup, getting back together thing. With Van Graan, I don't know. I mean, we could definitely find that out by asking a few of our South African buddies.
Like Schmidt is another example. Like when the All Blacks job, and I say when the All Blacks job comes along for him, that's your chance. You're not going to, that All Blacks job may not come up a second time, whereas with Rog, he'll get offered it once, probably get offered it twice, 3 times, and it's like, it's here for you, Rog, whenever you want it. But maybe that's disrespectful to the people who are already in the Munster system.
Sean Bruce says, concussions are pushing people away from rugby, fights are pushing people away from Gaelic football. 20 years' time, we're going to have a quality soccer team.
That's
every cloud.
Do you know what's pushing people away from the soccer team? The soccer.
The soccer. Well, I mean, at least, you know, you can we can play. It's not in our DNA to hoof the ball forward, as Dundalk have proven. Gary McGrain says, I'd love to see Roy Keane as Manchester United assistant manager. He would demand high standards that are not there currently. Complete lack of leaders throughout the team. Lukaku wouldn't start in the League of Ireland at the moment. I'd say Lukaku could get a game in the League of Ireland. Probably would.
Just about. Lukaku's
Athlone would be able to use him.
Lukaku is one of the best strikers in the Premier League. He's one of the best strikers in the world.
He's not. He is not one of the best strikers. He's absolutely not one of them. No way. He is. Vastly overrated.
He is.
Flat track bully.
He's vastly underperforming. And he is not anywhere near his level at the moment.
Well, he's definitely not one of the best strikers in the world.
He would make the top 10.
You're going to die on that hill, are you? Lukaku's in the top 10 strikers in the world.
Give me 10 better number 9s.
I don't know if he's like top 10 strikers in the Premier League. Greg Whelan says, at Daniel Harris, really enjoyed your ad off the ball piece live this morning. Great stuff. I mean, he's at the Murata Giroud level at the moment. That's how he's playing.
He's definitely better than Murata and Giroud.
Well, that's the level he's playing at the moment.
That's what I said. He's vastly underperforming.
Yeah, but you know, what have you done for me lately?
Well, that's what happens when you're underperforming. What have you done for me lately? You're underperforming lately. That's what he's doing. That's the answer to your question.
All right, last piece for you for now. Scottstown and Monaghan keeper Rory Beggan here at the launch of AIB's Camogie and Club Championships on what they learned from defeat to Tyrone this summer.
Yeah, it's probably one of them days. Look, what people say, you need to get into a semi-final to win one. You need to lose a semi-final, to win one. So, we aim to get back to that position and go maybe 1-2 steps further next year. But we know that the hard road it is to get there. Teams will be a lot more. Teams we play next year, those championship games, going to be a lot of new managers, a lot of new systems will be tried, and it's going to be a tough Ulster Championship. And then depending on Super 8s, a lot more teams will be probably accustomed to it, and so on. So lessons probably learned from the Tyrone game. you can't be going in any way flat. You need to be in and playing your best football at that time of year, and maybe even that might not be enough. So, if you're not coming in and playing your best ball, it's not going to get you too far.
Do you think that, and I won't say was there mistakes in preparation, what I mean is if you were to do it again, would you do it differently? And that's not a criticism, that's just a learning.
Yeah, well, look, we'd love to do it differently. I think it was just sort of, we probably didn't play to our potential. The week before against Galway, we probably played some of our best football against a very good Galway defence. We were very patient in that. Maybe we just weren't as patient in the game in Croke Park. Whatever happened, I don't know. But look, I can't say as much for the outfield players. They put in serious work on it, and it just didn't happen on the day for us. And look, we will learn from that, and hopefully we can push on.
It's Rory Beggan, future NFL star. If I have my way, I wonder, could we just do an NFL combine some summer and go, you guys could all be Christian Wade if you wanted somebody who hasn't actually got a hope of making the NFL, but we could indulge in the fantasy for a couple of weeks.
Let's not do an NFL combine. Let's just play an NFL match so that it will actually look good. But an NFL combine, you actually get into the nitty-gritty of the statistics, and it's like, actually, that guy is a full second quicker than Christian Wade. And the whole thing would collapse on the basis of figures. Don't get bogged down in statistics.
As in,
let's get on the gridiron, as they say, and let's play an actual game of American football.
And, have like 12 people dead.
If that's the necessary cause.
All right. That's nearly it for us from this morning. Just to let you know, you can now podcast this show on Spotify. You just search for OTB AM on Spotify, and you can get access to every single one of our podcasts right there. We are obviously also wherever else you get your podcasts. If anybody is ever having any difficulties with us, drop us a line and we'll make sure that we're on your network. If you can't watch us or you can't wait for the podcast, you can also listen live to the show every morning over at offtheball.com. When you click onto offtheball.com, either on mobile or on your desktop, that play button in the top right-hand corner, you hit that, and in glorious Technicolor audio, and just the audio stream, you'll get myself and Owen. And as you should know by now, we post all of our best stuff on Off the Ball on YouTube. Just head over to youtube.com/offtheball and hit subscribe. There's a big subscribe button there, which I can't see on that screen. That's because we're already subscribed, obviously. So there is one there. Oh yeah, there it is there. It's a big subscribe button in the bottom right. Sorry, I missed it. We are also on Snapchat now too. And I should point out that episode 1 of Dadcast is available for you on YouTube as well. On Snapchat, it's username offtheball1. Can you believe it? Some other clown had Off the Ball taken for us and we couldn't wrestle it away from them. But we'll get it. We're coming for you, Off the Ball on Snapchat. We're going to find out who you are, and we're going to offer you at least €20 to swap your username.
Was that not just the previous Off the Ball Snapchat account we set up and forgot to use and forgot the password of?
No.
I'm pretty sure it was.
No, that was off the _ball, I think. I mean, that's definitely not the case, Owen. Could well be the case. Promising nothing here. So yeah, we are now live on Snapchat. Head over there, snap us. Don't send us the stuff that you send everybody else on Snapchat, right? Just don't do it.
What sort of stuff?
We're back live tomorrow morning from 7:45 a.m. Off the Ball is live tonight from 7. Conor Murray on Wednesday Night Rugby. Roy O'Connor in studio. Build up in reaction to Liverpool against Red Star Belgrade and Spurs trip to PSV Eindhoven in the Champions League. You can watch OTB AM live back up on our YouTube channel after the show ends. That is our lot today. We'll see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.